Welcome, Kamisha.
Thank you. It's exciting.
Yeah. So I'm glad we got a chance to sit down and talk to you. We don't really have too much of a scripted program,
Yeah.
but we always start with one question.
Oh gosh.
Yes.
What is that question?
The question is, when did you first fall in love with Christ?
Whew. It's sort of a long story, but not really. Okay, so when I grew up, um, for 2.5 years, I lived with my grandparents because my mom was in rehab. So my grandfather would take me to church with him.
Look at me.
My grandfather would take me to church with him.
Yeah.
And I hated going to children's church.
Right.
It was boring. Like, I was like, what are these stupid little ditties? I'm trying to be in there with the real learning.
Yeah.
The folks and the peoples. And so I don't remember exactly what the pastor said, but he said I can't remember exactly what was said. But I do know that I wanted to be a believer and I wanted to be a Christian.
Right.
So I went home to my grandparents' house and I got on my knees and I prayed to Jesus and I asked God to come into my heart and to save me and to be a believer. And then my body was on fire.
Really?
Like, my body was on literal fire from the inside out. And that is when I fell in love with Christ. And then he really made me mad because I had to go back and live with my mom when she got out of rehab. So we broke up. I broke up with him, and true to form, he did not break up with me. Yeah. And then I had a reconnection when I moved down to Florida to go to grad school.
Yeah,
I was probably 22. I was 22 because I graduated. No, I wasn't 22. It was a year or so after that. So I was 23.
Right.
And then I rededicated my commitment to God.
Did you get baptized again?
No, okay. I wanted to, but it didn't happen. And that's okay, because now I know I don't have to get rebaptized. Right. So, and it wasn't, I didn't go down to the front and say, I want to dedicate my life to the Lord. It was just providence. Like, God put these Christians in my life. I was directing a Christian play. Some of the people went to Antioch. I ended up over there, and then
so you were at Antioch when you rededicated your life?
Yeah, okay. And I went to a couple different churches actually, and I was like, I don't really like this place over here. And then I ended up going to Antioch, and I liked it. I liked it a lot, and I just joined and was like, boom.
Now, what year was that when you moved there?
So I graduated in 2004 with my undergrad, and I moved over that summer to go to UCF.
We came down here in 2004 as well.
I remember we talked about that.
Yeah. So that's great. That's great. So how did the change in your behavior from prior to rededicating to rededicating, was that a great impact on your life?
It was, because I was out in these streets like I wanted to be a video girl. I was trying to be in the videos. I was like, yes. I had no rhythm. I didn't know if I liked girls or guys, but I wanted to be on top of the donk with my booty out. Like, completely. Wow. But college changed because those were my high school years. Yeah. I was so mad at God. I said, you know what? Since you gonna act a fool, I can act a fool times 2. Okay. And then I went to college, and life became more serious because I had a schedule. I had, all of these things that were happening. I had a goal to work towards, graduation. Right. And so that changed me. And then through college, I matured because I had different life goals that I wanted to pursue. I wanted to get healthy. I wanted to, college was ending, and I'm thinking to myself, I need a career. Like, this is not play. Right. The first 2 years, it was cool. But then when you graduate, what are you going to do? You need a plan. Right. And I've never been anybody with a plan until recently. Yeah. Literally, I sort of live life by the seat of my pants. And so those things over that period of time also changed me
Right.
as well. It was more like priorities, because when you're young, you do things that are outlandish anyway.
Mhm.
The things that you do are more external, and then when you become older, you begin to do things that are internal, that internal growth that
Right.
impacts your life on the outside.
So what were you doing? You were doing more discipleship, studying. I mean,
When I was in college,
well, when you rededicated
I joined
yourself.
every ministry under the sun, except I was not a deacon or a deaconess.
Right.
I was not on the finance committee, and I definitely was not anybody's pastor.
Right.
But every ministry, I was an usher at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the choir. I was in 2 choirs.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the youth ministry,
Mm-hmm.
young adult ministry, hospitality ministry, taught me how to cook. Like, I was in everything.
I remember you. Well, I mean, I wasn't saved at that point, but I do remember going to church with Mo and being there, and I think you were part of the mission ministry at one point too, right?
I was part of missions. Mm-hmm.
Now how did that come about? Because I see you, I know you as a missionary mostly, so and a world traveler, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it'd probably be easier to ask you where you haven't been than where you've been. So, I mean, how many trips you take every year?
Oh my gosh. Pre-COVID, it was 6 to 8 trips. I've taken up to 10 trips a year. Mm-hmm. Post-COVID, it's a little bit trickier. Yeah. I think I did 4 or 5 up until this point in August.
Right.
So, but yeah, pre-COVID, up to 10 a year.
And how many of those would you consider missionary?
I would say I used to take at least 1 mission trip a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
At least 1. But I always felt as though any opportunity that I had to talk to someone about God, I would take that opportunity. There were times where I used to hostel a lot. Mm-hmm. Instead of staying in hotels, go stay in a hostel, live in a dorm, and you get to talk to people and you hear their stories and you build relationships with them.
Well, most of these trips by yourself?
Yes. Yeah, so it's easier. I mean...
See, I'm a movie guy, so when I see movies like Hostel from back in the day.
I remember seeing that movie. I saw that movie. It's one of the first horror flicks that I saw as an adult. And I was like, I'm never doing this again.
That would scare me,
It's fun.
Yeah. So of the mission trips, which one would you say was the most enlightening, impactful, and you saw, or maybe the one that you saw God most at work most,
It's always India.
India.
Nothing's gonna top India.
Why is that?
The juxtaposition in India itself. We had an opportunity to take a cultural day.
Yeah.
And we went to the Taj Mahal.
Who's we?
So me and our missions group. Yeah. So there were 10 of us, or I can't even remember how many of us. Mm-hmm. There were so many of us. Mm-hmm. And before we actually worked with the missionaries that were in India, the church planters, actually. Yeah. We took a couple of days to get the right clothes. We did tours so that we got our footing.
Yeah.
And all of those types of things. And traveling from the airport to our hotel was an adventure on its own. I mean, that right there, it could be a television show. Just getting from the airport, getting in the car, getting through traffic, and getting to the hotel that had no elevator, and it's 120 degrees outside, and it's nighttime, and there's no elevator, and we have to go upstairs, and we just got off of like a 14-hour flight.
Give me an idea of what the balance of Christianity versus non-Christianity is in India. I mean, what's the predominant religion there?
The predominant religion, I don't want to get it wrong. I want to say it's Hinduism.
Or Hindi, or I don't know. That's the language, right? I don't know. What do I know?
I should know these things,
Mhm.
but I don't.
Well, Christianity was very
It's
a
it's
small
a it's a
percentage.
minority,
Mhm.
and we were in northern India. So, if you know anything about India, southern India is more open to Christianity.
Yeah.
There's actually a large population of Catholic Indians,
Mm.
and northern India is a Muslim population and a Hindu
Got
population,
it. Got
a
it.
very small Christian population. And in some areas in northern India, especially where there's more villages, more small towns, more mountainous areas, there can be hostility between Muslims and Hindus and
Mm.
Muslims and Christians and Hindus and Christians. We
Right.
actually visited some villages where the residents there told us, please pray for us.
Right.
Um, our neighbors are Muslim, and they're
Mhm.
telling us if we don't give an offering to, for their celebration,
Mhm.
they're going to come and beat us and really do harm to us.
Right.
And we were able to go and pray with them, do a Bible study, check up on them. They were actually a plant,
Mhm.
a church plant.
Mhm.
There was a church planter that was going around being the pastor to certain little villages.
Yep.
And so that hostility is very much there.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So Christianity is a small minority, but it is growing. It is present. The church planners that we worked with, I won't give their name
Of
just
course. Yep.
for their
Mhm.
safety,
Mhm.
because of the things that they do in the community. The community at large around them tolerates them.
Right.
They don't really go around proselytizing in the streets, which you should not do
Right.
if you're in an area like that. But they do have a safe house for widows, and
Mhm.
they get widows off of the street
Right.
so that the widows don't have to turn to prostitution or beg, or they give them a safe place, they take care of them. At that time they were taking care of the lepers in a leper colony that had been
Wow.
abandoned.
Wow.
We had an opportunity to go to the leper colony, and the lepers, their families moved in with them.
Mhm.
And so they were also ostracized because they wanted to be with their loved one.
Right.
They had a prisons ministry in the boys' prison. And at that time, some boys would be in prison because either they didn't have any place to go
Yeah.
because their parents were in prison. Not that they did something criminal, but
Right.
if you had a child and
Mhm.
your child didn't have any family members that wanted them, your child would go to the prison. I mean, where
Right.
else would they go?
Right.
So they did a prison ministry. And because of the transformation of the boys in the prison, the violence went down, the hostility went
Okay.
down.
All right.
When the missionaries went in, the prison guards, even though they were not Christian, welcomed the missionaries and the church planners to come in.
Made their job easier, I'm sure.
Completely,
Mhm.
completely made their job easier.
Mhm.
And the boys had hope. They had goals. They would come in and teach them skills and teach them how to read and write and things like that. And they talked about how the violence and the hostility and the crime, and the hatred between the boys had decreased. And the guards, their job was so easy.
Right.
They hardly ever had to discipline anyone.
Right.
So there was an opportunity to see where Christianity, in that sense, made the lives of other people easier.
Did that make God more real, for lack of a better word, in your life? How did it improve or?
Not necessarily, but what I will say is that the things that we say, oh, that happened in the Old Testament, we don't see that now.
Mm.
They're happening in India. People being saved by dreams.
Mm.
The prayer circles of these Indian church planners, people being miraculously healed and having a real testimony.
Wow.
And things actually happening. So when you know about first century Christianity, how orphanages began,
Yeah.
the Christians would take the abandoned kids off of the street, and
Yeah.
they would house them, they would feed them, they would love them. And the community at large would say, y'all are crazy. Why would you take these abandoned kids?
Right.
But then they noticed that there
Mhm.
weren't kids running around
Right.
without hope. They weren't vagabonds. You wouldn't find the dead bodies of children on the street because the Christians took them in and housed them and took them. So it was actually a service to the community.
Right.
And so they wouldn't bother the Christians because they were servicing the community. Right. So when I went to India, I could see how all of those things that some modern day Christians in the United States would say, oh, that doesn't happen anymore,
Right.
is 100% happening.
Gotcha. That's amazing.
there.
That's amazing. So you had said that when you graduated high school and went to college that you had aspirations. So tell me about some of those aspirations.
Like,
So what was your? I'll narrow it down.
yeah.
What were your career goals, for example?
I'm a late bloomer. I had no career goals. I had no career goals at all.
Listen,
I went to school for theater.
Theater, that's it. That's the
I
one.
went to school for theater, and I wanted to do theater. And although I was taking these classes, I was around theater professionals. I had fellow students of mine that had plans. It didn't dawn on me to to get an internship. Right. It didn't dawn on me to do those things, even though those things were available and other people were doing them. It was just I was just completely blind to the fact that that was something that I should have been doing and taking advantage of as well.
So as a theater major, were you focusing on, for lack of a better way, being in front of the camera or behind the camera?
Behind. Okay. So I went to school for theater for young audiences.
Okay.
And I was a director, and we actually had a theater troupe in one of our TYA classes, and I was one of the stage managers because we would get on the van and go to schools and put on plays and do all of those things. Okay. And so in my mind, I wanted to be a director. Didn't know how I was going to get there, but I just assumed that once I had a college degree in directing, someone would give me a job and I would be fabulous. And I didn't know what the ceiling was for that. Completely oblivious to all of those things. Gotcha. So it was, when I say I lived by the seat of my pants and I had no plans, I really didn't. Like, these were not things that we spoke about when I grew up. My mother and my aunts and my grandmother and my grandfather, they were really busy taking care of us, making sure we ate. There were a lot of conversations that we didn't have, not because they didn't care about us, but they were trying to, survive and live. Right. So all of those conversations, we never had them. And by God's grace, I figured it out.
So you graduated college with a theater.
I have a Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Theater for Young Audiences degree.
All right. Awesome. I actually like that. This is, creative people are my jams. Yeah. So I'm like, man, what can I use Kamisha for production and theater and church? And
I love staging. Stuff. Staging is my jam. I love putting people in the right place.
Okay.
I love the minimalist idea of being able to do a lot with nothing. Yeah. I really, really like that.
Okay. All right. So fast forward, you are a teacher now in the Orange County Public School System.
Yes.
What is it? OCPS?
Yes.
Okay. And tell me about what you teach, your grade level. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, this is my second year not in the classroom. So how
long you been doing this first year?
Oh my gosh. I actually started teaching professionally at 20 in college as a theater teacher. So all the way up until I'm still teaching. I teach at Valencia. So I'm technically still teaching, but in K through 12, I'm not. Okay. At Valencia, I am still teaching. So
and what are you teaching in Valencia?
Valencia, I teach a college and careers course.
Okay.
For incoming college students. Okay. It's a program to help them get job ready and figure out what they want to do.
Now I know you as a teacher. I don't really know you as doing anything else. And we often talk about callings and being drawn to ministry and things like that. When Monet and I talk about you, we see you as being called to disciple and teach and so on and so forth. Is that sort of a true statement?
I think so.
When did the teaching aspect of what you do or the teaching aspect connect with you and God, right? You know what I'm saying? When did God pull you into the discipleship aspect of teaching? Or did it come first or second? You know what I mean?
I think it came second. Okay. And it was after years of being underneath the leadership of Cameron Triggs, under
Okay.
Young Adult Fellowship at Antioch.
Okay.
And Cameron came in, and the things that he was teaching us and these ideas, which were biblically correct, I will say,
Yeah.
pushing us to want to know God more, in our heart and also in our mind, and also pushing us to do the mission, which is also the inclusion of discipleship.
Right.
Also, I was becoming a little bit older than some of the young adults that were coming in at that time. When I came in as a young adult at 23 or 24, I was a true young adult. But then close to 30, there were these young people that were 21, 22, 24.
There was a lot of youth at Antioch back in those days.
There was. And even though I was probably still considered a young adult, I was on the older end of the spectrum.
Gotcha.
So when they look at you and they ask questions, you need to have an answer.
Right.
You know, especially if it's known, oh, you've been here for a while.
Yeah.
You know, oh, you've been at Antioch longer than me, or you've been at church longer than me. Why shouldn't you know?
Right.
And so thanks be to God, I was able to know some answers. And also thanks be to God, I had enough wisdom to say, I don't know the answer, but I will try and find out. Yeah. So that push under Cameron to take your salvation seriously, to take learning and knowing about God seriously, all of us took it to heart and we believed it to be true. And it is true. Yeah. So that's how the two connected together.
Like I said, I got here in 2004, but I did not get saved. And I was going back and forth to Antioch with Monet because she was a member, and I was resisting being saved. So, but thanks to God, I got saved in, I don't even know, I think 2010 or 11. I'm not sure. But spent years in Antioch and met Gracia and all those different folks that helped. But that was my time of falling in love with Christ. But I want to get back to the teaching aspect of what you do. So at what point did you decide to become a teacher, and why?
I don't know at what point.
Well, you became, when you first started in Orange County.
That was an accident.
Oh, an accident.
Yeah, okay. It was. Coming into OCPS was an accident. We had the recession in 2010 or whatever.
Yep.
That was, and I was a teaching artist. I was still working on my Master's of Fine Arts for theater for young audiences, working at the Orlando Repertory Theater. Yeah. It's no longer the Rep anymore. I had the opportunity to be a teacher at UCF. I had the opportunity to teach those small summer classes at the Rep. Then there was Florida Children's Theater. They had a grant to go in and do 21st century learning. And so they hired theater teachers to go in to teach at the after school program. I had a theater class that I taught at a youth gymnasium off of John Young over there. And I was still getting my master's degree. So I had all these teaching opportunities while I was getting my degree. I dropped out of my program.
Out of the master's program?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the recession happened.
Okay. And
when the recession happened, all of that grant money to send, all of that government grant money, it was gone. And when I say gone, it was immediately gone. It was as if there was an announcement that we were in a recession, and then the government said we're going to cut back money on the fine arts. And then a week from there, the first job that I lost was the Florida Children's Theater job. Right. The grant money was gone. Because it just so happened to be right around the time the summer was coming. Right. So I spent the whole summer frantic. I didn't have a job. I didn't have any money. I wasn't in my program. I had a friend named Jennifer that was a Orange County substitute with Kelly Services. And she said, just be a substitute. It's temporary and then you can figure it out.
Gotcha.
Interestingly enough, the year before, I had a friend named Natasha who was unemployed and let go from her job. And it was so devastating to her. I think she was unemployed for almost a year.
Right.
And I said, Lord, when she lost her job, I said, God, I hope that don't ever happen to me. I'm always going to have a job. Fast forward almost a year later, I was unemployed. Wow. And I was like, I ain't praying no more. No, I'm not talking to God about anything ever again. Because and I was only unemployed for 3 months. Mm-hmm. And it was a great time. I got to work at Antioch for the summer as a summer counselor. Yeah. Pastor Thomas made sure that I had something to do, and I got paid. And the benevolence ministry helped me to help me pay my bills, like for the summertime, all of those things. Then I became a Kelly substitute.
Do you feel like that was God taking care of you?
It 100% was.
Okay.
There's no other, because the way things happened, it was like boom, boom, boom. Everything was taken care of for the summer. I became a Kelly substitute. My friend Jennifer helped me a whole lot. It was ridiculous. She's the one that said, listen, I got a teaching job full time and I'm leaving my permanent substitute position at a high school. Mm-hmm. Talk to the lady. I already told her your name. Tell her who you are. I already told her. She kept saying, I already told her. So I went and I spoke to the substitute coordinator at that school. She said, yes, Jennifer told me about you.
Right. That's awesome.
It took a couple of weeks for me to get into a permanent spot, but she hired me every day. She said, even if no one takes off, come in anyway, and I'll find something for you to do every day, like clockwork. She had me working. Then I got a permanent position as a paraprofessional, as a substitute in a classroom. And then it didn't even take long. The position opened up as an OCPS employee, which was better. Yeah. The hourly wage didn't change, but I had health insurance. And that's what I said to myself. You'll have health insurance. Right. I didn't even do that job for a year as an employee, as a paraprofessional. Right. I said to myself, I'm in these classrooms. There are classrooms for students with disabilities. Not going to go into a backstory with that, but I can do this. I'm a teacher. I can do this. And I can be a better teacher than the teacher that I'm working with. I know that I can. Okay. I've been teaching for years. I know how to do this. Right. I went to my AP, my assistant principal, Melanie May, who is the best assistant principal. Like, everybody is a standard as far as I'm concerned to Melanie May. She's a principal now. I love her. I'm so grateful for her. And I said, I turned in all of my stuff to be a teacher. I just want you to know that I'm looking for teaching positions. You might need somebody to fill my spot. I wasn't even a para for a whole school year. It was only the semester.
So how good are you as a teacher?
I'm really good.
You're really good?
Yes.
I didn't think you would hesitate telling us
I'm really good. Like.
So tell me, the students that are you in a particular grade? You mentioned.
Well, now I'm an administrator.
Now, right. But the kids you were teaching were I don't know how to say it, special.
They were special needs students.
Special needs.
I'm a certified autism specialist. Okay. So I specifically worked with students with autism for a really, really long time. Right. Then the criteria for schools changed, and then it was mixed, and all of these different things. And then eventually I was burned out from doing that. Right. So I went into a gen ed classroom and I taught math. Right. And I liked it, but it was too many things coming down from the district level. I wanted to just do my job and go home. Right. I was also at that time, I started to get to know who I was at that time. And I knew I wasn't going to be in a gen ed classroom long when a principal sent me an email and said, on a Saturday, and she said, you need to have this done by XYZ day. And I told her in an email, these are my duty hours. And this is what I do during my duty hours. And if I can get to what you want me to do during my duty hours, I will do it. And if not, it won't get done. You might need to find somebody else to go do that.
Ooh. Sassy, huh? Sassy. Now, I know you as a sassy young lady, right?
That's brand new.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't know if that's brand new, but okay.
Listen, thank you to CTA for that teachers union contract. I appreciate y'all.
Well, here's a question for you. You mentioned that a lot of things were coming down from the district, and we know that there's a lot of controversy and pressure put on teachers nowadays. Anything you feel about sharing about those things safely? I mean, I don't know if
this is what I will say. If anyone is a teacher and they're listening, know what your contract is and know what you're obligated to do. Yeah. And don't feel bad about not doing more than what you're obligated to do. Because I will say this, we are in a teacher shortage. Yeah. As long as you don't physically harm someone, sexually abuse someone, you can't be replaced by standing on your contract. Right. Take care of yourself first, because even though they can't easily replace you, they will allow those students to sit in a classroom with a substitute. Wow. So as soon as you drop dead, a substitute will be in that classroom. They will find a body. Mm-hmm. Not just being a teacher or that's any job. Yeah. If you're a bus driver, as soon as you drop dead, there will be somebody else driving that bus.
So here's a question. How does the love of Christ or Christ's love for you impact your teaching? I mean, do you bring that into the classroom to some degree? Is it important?
I do. Yeah. The way that I treat people is how I display Christ. The way that I do my very best to be non-judgmental of the lifestyles of others. And, that's a whole conversation within itself. Yeah. I have colleagues that live a different lifestyle. And especially my homosexual colleagues or my colleagues that identify as homosexual, they are very shocked at the fact that I would go and eat dinner with them at their home, or that I would socialize with them outside of school, not just in school, or that I will check in on them, or that I'm not afraid to say, I'm going to pray for you about that. Like, you don't have to believe what I believe, but I'm going to pray for you about that. I have a really good friend of mine who's a teacher, and she identifies as Jewish. And we went out to dinner once, and she said, I just want to ask you, like, how is it that you're a Christian, but you're so accepting of homosexuals? And when I told her what my reasoning was, she was like, oh my God, I've never heard that. And it's
Can you share that reasoning?
Well, the reason behind it is because I'm called to love people. Do I agree with the way that people live their lifestyles? I don't agree with the way that people live their lifestyles, and people don't agree with the way that I live my lifestyle, and that's okay too. Mm-hmm. I also don't think that bashing people over the specific sin of homosexuality is okay. The way that they are bashed and physically attacked and harmed, that's not God. You can't say that you love God, but you're willing to kill someone that says that they identify as a homosexual. Because we are out here killing people that are adulterers. Yeah. You don't see anyone beating up people that sit at the buffet too long, because that's gluttony. Right. That. We don't see any of those things. We don't see anyone being murdered because they desire to have the lifestyle of somebody else. That's covetousness. Yeah. You see all these girls out here that want somebody else's body because they don't like their body. Mm-hmm. You don't see anybody following them down the street trying to harm them because they're being covetous of what somebody else has and they don't enjoy what God gave them.
That's interesting. I remember early on, after being saved, when I was listening to Pastor Jones, he would say, we can love the person and hate the sin. Yeah, that was one of those lines, those takeaways from the pulpit that always stuck with me. You don't, like you say, you don't necessarily agree with the way people live their life, but you can still love them. And that's what we're called to do. That's awesome. That's awesome. So what's next? Okay. So here's one question, right? The arts, the creative side of what you do, do you still have a passion for those things? Do you still act or want to act or produce or direct or anything like that?
I don't have any desire to. I love to go see shows. It's really hard to watch a show because that theater background is still in me. I'm very harsh. Yeah. I critique live theater performances. I critique them hard.
And that's and I ask that question because a lot of creatives do that. Yeah. I find when I watch TV or look at pictures that I'm seeing the art or the science or the mistakes or the improvements versus loving it just for the sake of what it is.
I can't do it.
It's tough.
It's
tough.
really bad.
Even when I watch movies, I'm a movie watcher. Oh my God, I just want to say this wasn't done right or that wasn't done right. This was awesome. Can't you see the majesty or the creativity in this?
Exactly.
And Mo's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's really difficult, especially when Oscar season comes out. And I love Oscar season because you get to see movies that you wouldn't have seen. Yeah. And some of my friends, I go to the movies by myself a lot because they're not going to go with me. Right. My favorite Oscar movie of this season was Women Talking. Mm-hmm. And my friend works in production at Disney. And she said, I fell asleep. And I was like, what? You did what? And so too. Like, I'm a classically Shakespearean trained actress. Okay. So the words, like the back and forth, the metaphors, the emotion, like I was in the screen. I was like, yes, yes. And she's like, I fell asleep.
So who's your favorite actor or actress?
I don't have one.
No?
I don't have a lot of favorite things. To be honest.
Anyone rise to the top?
Nope.
No?
Not really, to be honest. Because I like people for different reasons. You know?
So when you decide to go to the movies, pay for it, what is your criteria for saying, I'm going to go see this?
It depends. Yeah. So if it's an action movie, it depends on the type of action. Like, for example, Marvel movies. Lots of people love Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, me being one of them. So
it's too corny for me. I need for you to hurry up and shoot everybody. I want everybody to be shot up, drop kicked in the face. I want eyeballs to be missing. All these little jokes. Ain't nobody got time for all that joking. The world is ending. All these little I don't have time for none of that.
So do you like Marvel movies at all?
I do.
So is there a favorite one?
Iron Man is at the top of the list.
It's almost three.
It doesn't even matter. All of the ones with Robbie Downey Jr.
Okay.
All of them. But I am
any
Marvel
worse
fan.
Ones? Any like
other than Guardians of the Galaxy?
Mine is Thor: Love and Thunder. Forget it. I will never watch that one again. It was just too over the top.
Yeah, that one isn't one of my faves, but I do like the Thor franchise. Yeah. So what Marvel did with the one, it was so ambiguous. It was the one with like 20 different people in it.
What? Avengers?
No. It was after the Avengers. So because now we're in the new cycle. Uh-huh. It was the whoever people.
Okay. You mean What If series?
No. Oh my God. Jennifer, I'm gonna think of it later.
Okay.
But that wasn't a fave. It wasn't a fave at all. So
it's gonna pop in your head.
It is gonna pop in my head. 100%. And be like, oh yeah, that was the movie. Mm-hmm.
So I almost was there. What's next, right? So what's next for your relationship with God, your career, and family?
I don't know. I think that when it comes to my career, I'm still praying for God to open up an opportunity for me to get my doctorate degree. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of programs out
You did finish your master's?
I did finish my master's.
Okay. All right.
I have my master's in education for focus on students with disabilities, and I'm a certified behavior interventionist now as well. I have a master's certificate in that. And there are 2 doctoral programs that are completely free.
Okay.
But they don't open up every year so that I can get my doctorate in working with students with disabilities. So I'm just waiting for those opportunities to open up so that I can apply. So getting my doctorate, I would love to teach on the collegiate level as well.
Senior professor?
Possibly. But I also wouldn't mind continuing to work in the administrative side of K through 12 either. Yeah. I'm okay with that. I hope that my relationship with God continues. I'll just say that.
Yeah. You be getting mad at God sometimes, huh?
Listen. God get this heat all the time. He gets his heat.
That's hilarious.
He really does. I come out blazing. Pew, pew, pew. The good thing about God, as someone reminded me, is he can take it.
Well, yeah. Scripturally, he allows us to lament, right? So
I don't think I'm in the scriptures when it comes to that. I ain't in the book when it comes to that. When it comes to, I might be in the book. I'm one of Job's friends. I'm Job, actually. Okay. And God be ready to come down and be like, oh, I thought somebody that created the world had something to say. Oh, because I thought that somebody that turned darkness into light had something to say. And I'd be like, I do have something to say. Actually, since we're here.
Oh my God. So family, mom is good. I mean, tell me what's going on. Everybody all right?
I think everyone is okay. As a parent of two parents, now that I'm raising two parents, I believe my parents are doing well. Hopefully they're applying all of the things that I've been trying to teach them lately. Uh-huh. But like they're going into new stages in their life as well, which is really, really interesting to see. It's really interesting to see your parents go through the stages of looking for a job or looking for another job, and not giving up, which is it's a God thing. Yeah. It really is, to see, because you would think when you're in your 50s or 60s, you'd have your career. But I have a mother that says, this isn't what I want to do. Which is really odd for someone of her generation, because typically of that generation, you get a good job, you stay at it for the rest of your life, and you say, I've got benefits and I have a good job and I'm just going to stay here. Yep. And my mom, ever since I was in my 20s, she's like, okay, but this isn't what I want to do. So I'm going to go do something that's going to get me to what I want to do. And she continues to say, I'm not settling for what I don't want to do or what I don't want. And so that's really amazing to see. It's really amazing to see God come through, because she recently was hired at a better job than what she had, better benefits, and it is something that she wants to do. And she's opened herself up to the challenges of working the computer. Okay. She's not saying, I can't do this, I'm too old. She's like, I'm going to get it. It's going to happen. It's like,
how much of that is in you?
I think a lot of that is in me. And we encourage each other. She'll call and she'll say, can you please pray for me? Which is really, really interesting to have a parent come to a child and say, I want you to pray for me. Both of my parents do that. Right. They'll say, please pray for this, please pray for that. She'll tell her friends, I'm going to tell my daughter to pray for you. And she'll call me and say, I told such and such that you were going to pray for her. And we pray right then and there. Like, right. It's not even odd. Right. So having parents that are believers, but also they don't doubt the Holy Spirit that's in you. It's not one of those things where a parent will say, well, you're too young, I can't come to you, you don't understand. Right. They don't hesitate. And that's really, really interesting.
That's good
to have.
Good. So my as we close up, my last question is, what's the next trip?
So the list keeps getting longer, and I'm not taking any of the trips on the list. I'm taking all these other trips. So Japan is still on the list, but the goal is to go to Morocco.
Morocco, okay.
In November. I don't know what I'm going to do for Christmas, but hopefully Morocco in November. Portugal can either be Christmas time or spring break. Mm-hmm. I also have an opportunity to take a missions trip to Uganda with a focus on sex trafficking. Wow, okay, yep. And human trafficking is one of the ministry mission things that I'm involved in here locally as well. Mm-hmm. So that's an opportunity. Pastor PJ Charles has been trying to get me to go to Brazil on their mission trip that they have through his church. Yeah. But PJ, if you're listening, you have to send those dates longer than 1 month in advance. Okay. Yes. Just need you to know that. Okay?
We'll make sure we forward it to him.
Yes. So, but I would love to go to Brazil and do that as well. Cool. So Japan is on the list, but I also want to do an RV trip for my birthday.
RV, now you're talking.
Yeah, because I want to go to Yellowstone and go to Grand Teton and do some hiking. So
that's awesome.
That's on the list. We'll see how it goes.
Listen, thank you.
Oh,
thank you for sitting with me and allowing me to share your story.
Oh, thanks.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, this is great.
You're going to do it again at some point. Thank you all for joining us. This is the Chronicles of Lesson Mo podcast. We are out.